listening to Big Blend Radio, and we are airing live from the historic Tuxedo Park STL Bed and Breakfast near St. Louis, Missouri. Of course, we're your host, Nancy and Lisa, and you just heard Aerial Views. That is the title track to the latest album by St. Louis-based acclaimed Imrat-Guitarist and producer Todd-Mosby. The album is out now, and you need to go get it because it will make you feel so good. It just is like right now, this is just, I've been listening to the album, and it makes me feel happy and at peace, and you're floating because it's aerial views. It's all about the earth, sky, everything. It's beautiful. So go keep up with Todd. Go to toddmosby.band and also go get the album on toddmosby.bandcamp.com. And we're so excited to have Todd back on the show. Welcome back, Todd. How are you?
Hey, Nancy. Hey, Lisa. How y'all doing? Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
We're good.
We're doing good. And I'm sorry. I know. I thank you for waiting an hour to get back on the show because I messed up our time zones. And we've been on the road like you wouldn't believe since we last talked to you in Colorado last year. And this year in COVID, we've had so many detours. And it's like you're in a new place every day. And I don't know my time zones anymore. I'm like now living in Eastern, but I'm in Central. And then tomorrow will be in Eastern time. So I don't know where we are right now. You know that feeling, don't you, as a touring musician? Like you wake up and go, where am I? Yeah?
Yeah, especially when you're crossing time zones a lot to get into different areas. Yep.
Yeah, totally.
And if you don't have clocks that adjust naturally, you're kind of or your calendars, actually, that can really mess you up.
Yeah, the computers, some say they will update it and then they don't. And Nancy can always walk into my room wherever we are. Is this right? I'm like, no. The only thing that I know that really changes it right is a cell phone. But my brain, that's a whole other thing. But listen, Aerial Views, I love the title track. I love the whole album. There's something about, I think we always wanted to fly. As human beings, we wanted to fly, and I wonder if we did. Maybe that's why we have this thing about angels and fairies and everything. Did that go into your mind when you were writing this album? Because I know you get into themes, earth and sky, the ocean waters, like you went into that in your other albums, but did you think about those other elements of flight that could be those beings?
Absolutely. On a metaphysical sense for sure. And some of the tunes like Ether, Into Starlight, and Sylph. Sylph is like a name of an ancient elemental sky being, actually, that the ancients used to call. They're actually they're huge. They were considered huge sky beings. In other words, they were kind of in the shape of clouds, but they had faces. It's kind of like a Sirius cloud, but they scattered. They didn't scatter. It's just this huge shape across a wide expanse, and they usually either would travel in solo or in groups as well. But it's considered an elemental sky being, and so that's why I named that one Sylph. Between the clouds, that's a little bit more on the physical realm. But earth and sky, earth and heaven, it's land and heaven. So I played a lot into that. So you can read it into the actual physical sense of an aeronautical sense, a land-based third-dimensional sense, or you could go into the metaphysical realm, which is, I touched both.
But I think it's interesting also, the last album you were on our show, and when we were in Colorado, and you called in, and we talked about St. Louis a lot and everything, and we're here now, but that was Open Waters, and you think about water, and if you were out on a yacht, like people that sail the world, they're going by the sky. Period.
Yeah.
So that connection is very interesting to me, of how you go back to the next one.
It's scary.
Oh, I think it's liberating.
No, but
scary in what sense?
In the sense of okay, you're out in the middle of the ocean and you're going to look at the sky and it's all clouded over. You're like, uh-oh. That's scary. Where do you navigate your boat to now, your ship to now, because it's all clouded over? If you're not using modern technology, you're just out there.
Oh no, but if you're in the sky, you're still going to have that feeling, right?
I know, but if it's clouded over.
They navigated even. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's cloudy or not. Like if you're navigating, in an airplane. I actually flew with my dad in a small and co-piloted with him and piloted with him for a number of years because that was part of his business. And so we always flew by instruments, and you can also fly, navigate your charts through instruments. You don't need. I mean, God knows if they didn't. That happens, but they have instruments that they go by on navigational charts as well. And actually the aeronautical charts are really laid out like a navigational chart on water because that's where they pulled from,
Okay.
If you look at a navigational chart, or at least the ones that I used to work on, because I actually drew aeronautical maps for my dad. He had a small company that was actually it drew, he made aeronautical maps for small business planes because back in the day in the 60s, 70s, 80s, throughout the 80s, by the 90s it got kind of like weird, very expensive, and small craft kind of, it was not many people could afford to use it as a business venture. To go, a lot of doctors would fly, into small towns, or businessmen would use, small craft to travel. From, for business meetings, etc. That's what my dad did too. So he drew. So I worked on navigational charts like that as a draftsman at one point in my life, and I spent a couple of years writing, updating nav charts and like that for aeronautical purposes.
Doesn't that kind of music, writing music too? When you look at, actual written notes, right? Back in the day, like I know we have everything computer generated now and everything, but when you write actual music and you put those notes in on, here's your 5 lines and you're going to put this clef here and everything. Is it kind of similar and connected just even through math? When you look at, navigation and music, it's all kind of connected in math and emotion and movement.
Yeah, I would say so. I would absolutely say so. Especially through motion and movement and emotion. Motion, emotion,
Yeah.
Kind of got the same derivative there.
Any kind of emotion is going to create an emotion, a reaction, hopefully emotion more than reaction and whatever. But with this album, I find it really interesting how you bring in the violin, you've got saxophone, you've got vocals, amazing vocals. I mean, everyone that's on here is amazing. So you've got a tribe of music coming in here, musicians coming in to work with you. And then you have the Imrat, and you have the side of India comes in too. So you went global on this, and wouldn't that be with water? It touches, that's where everybody, water, air, travel, that's what it is. We're all, when you think about, I'm still stuck on the water thing because, Mitchell always wrote his books on, he's like, everything happened with civilization by people landing, in areas of water. And then air is all part of that. If you look at sky and air, people looked for water through there, and it's all connected. Everything you're doing right now is so damn connected. It's cool. It's cool.
Nice. Yeah. In what sense? Like as far as the elements, using land, water, and air,
people,
or
people,
as far as
it's a
coming
together.
Together. I think it's a reminder to people. It's a reminder that, okay, the air is everywhere, so people think it's a given until you have smog. Then you realize it's not a given, and then you think water's a given until the streams dry up and there's a drought. Then it's not a given, So
yeah, well, you know what? If you can live about 3 weeks without water, maybe more without food, but or maybe a week without water, but it's only 3 minutes without air and you're out.
Right.
Unless you're like one of those deep divers.
Yeah,
and it's one of the most important aspects, I think, of living, but the most kind of taken for granted. And yeah, absolutely. Sure. Smog, clean air, being able to breathe. I mean, one of the best places I love going is into a forest. And only because, especially if it's got a lot of, if it's in the summertime, the leaves are full. Pine forests are amazing. And they stay green all winter long, too.
I know.
But the air quality in there is just amazing, if you're sensitive to that. And, I just, it's a great release. I wrote Ether as a way, as kind of like a dedication to that aspect of air. Actually, ether is like the thing that surrounds us. If you think of it, it's kind of how I think of it, is that, how fish is in water. Well, that's how we are in the ether environment, which is around us. And that was actually proven, years ago. But, I mean, probably, I think around 1880s, they did an experiment to find out exactly what ether was. That's that gaseous thing, in the universe that it was like, what is this stuff, is it really there, And they couldn't find it, but they did an experiment, I think, back in the 80s. Two scientists, either from Russia or from America, I can't remember the full story. But yes, they did find, ran the same experiment with, a little bit more sophisticated instruments, and they did discover, yes, there is an ether, and it is a very active environment, and we're surrounded by it.
Well, I think that's how our introduction to Missouri was yesterday. We drove from East Texas, Gladewater, East Texas. We left in the afternoon so we could just car camp for a couple hours in Arkansas in a crazy restaurant. We had amazing wine. Thank you, Los Ranch Vineyards. It's such a really fun moonlight in a car rest area, and then got to Mark Twain National Park at sunrise, which is what I wanted. And I envisioned, I want to be in the forest. I want to see the sunrise somewhere over a lake. And I just want to see the fall colors. And I just, want that. That was just a thing in my head. To me, as we travel, I don't have expectations, really, because get over it. Yeah. Get over it. But deep down, this was my expectation. So I really do. And I swear to God, that's exactly what happened. We got there, and because it got cold in the rest area where we had our wine, a couple hours later, we had to leave because it was so damn cold. And now we need to go get sleeping bags and blankets and stuff for what we do. But, we got out in time, and I'm like, okay, it's cold. Let's get the hell out. Let's go. And we got to this place in the Mark Twain Forest in the perfect time. And I was thinking about your album with this, because we were sitting there, and there's this wood. The woods are around us, and the sun came up
warmer.
Over this.
It was warmer.
I swear, I need to send you the photos of this. The sun came up, and as it was coming up, there was this fishing dock we went on. Then we thought we better not walk all the way. We don't know if we're going to go in because it's cold. This is going to go down. We don't trust it. But we walked this trail and everything, and the sun was coming up. And it was right over the lake. It was that perfect thing where the tops of the fall colors were coming up, and some of the trees were like, I'm already ready to be dead now for winter. And the others like, I'm still here with my hair. Look at my hairdo. And sun was coming. I mean, it was just this perfect thing. Well, no, because it was. It was just beautiful, and it was coming over this lake of cold. You could tell by the colors the lake was cold. Don't touch it. It's cold. And it was this magical moment. And I was thinking about your music because there were birds and hawks and things flying around. And I'm like, this is the coolest time. You're sitting there and your music. I want to say, and I will have to play Ether because we talked about this so much, but Across America, that song to me means everything because we travel. Nancy and I travel cross country. We're just, that's all we're doing. Is we've been to, I don't know, we've been to every state almost this year.
I think we might be a little bit on the crazy side.
Yeah, we would.
According to
Across
what people
America,
think you should be doing.
Okay, so I have a weirdness to what I have to say. So, I mean, we're already having a weird conversation. We had one last time you were on the show. It's not me, I swear. But the violin playing.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
The violin playing to me is this amazing soaring music where you feel like you've got wings, but it brings you in, like you feel like you're soaring over forests, right? So you understand the wood of the forest through the violin, which is wood, right? Then you have the saxophone, like giving you the air of the breath of what the forest gives you as you're floating above this whole thing. And that is, and then you've got the Indian style, that doodling that you have in there. And it's kind of like that's where the calm and the Zen moment is, and also the birds. That's it. I'm sorry, I tripped out. Anyway, go ahead.
You could take each instrument and assign it to something in nature.
But that's what I was just saying. That's how it is. Your album, this album, and having just been in your own state, your national forest, in your own state, I'm like, your album belongs in the Mark Twain National Forest, man. You can float it. You can fly above it, you know.
And we weren't smoking anything, honest.
No.
You know, that's such a beautiful description. Actually, I grew up in the Mark Twain National Forest. My grandparents had some property down there. I'm not sure which area of the forest you're in, but that's inspired a lot of beauty in my writing. Across America, actually, is that is what we call Missouri shade picking. So I would I used to be I spent a lot of time in Cuba, Missouri. Pitching hay, and my parents had a property there, and my dad actually built a dirt airstrip, and we'd have to go out there and pick rocks out of there and make sure it was level so we could land the plane, we could take off from there and everything. And but I mean, that was,
I thought it was Appalachian music. I was like, this is Appalachian music to me. Like I should be driving through the Smoky Mountains National Park,
Lisa,
and all that.
Wait.
Yeah.
Lisa, hold on a second. Check this out. Okay. So there is a huge connection between Appalachia and the Missouri Ozarks, okay? As a matter of fact, one of the main instruments of the Ozarks, two of them was violin, well, three. We'll say violin, guitar, but hammered dulcimer, which is in India called the santur. And dulcimer, whether it's a lap dulcimer, autoharp, or hammered dulcimer, is very, very regional, or used to be very regional to Appalachia, because that was where a lot of the Irish immigrants moved to back in the 1700s, 1800s, and a certain style of music, Appalachian bluegrass developed out of there. But back around, I want to say, because the Missouri Ozark area where Mark Twain is in southern Missouri, south central Missouri, is where that was like one of the last settled regions. The whole Ozark region, actually, when it goes down into Arkansas, too, absolutely beautiful. But that was the last region, all the Americans kind of like passed over that. They didn't know it was there. It was just this rocky stuff. And, it was the last, area to really be settled by Americans that were moving in. The Indians had already been moved out or whatever, unfortunately, but, another story, another time. But that was the last area that they settled in, and the people that settled it were Appalachians, because it was a very rough country. These people were already used to it. Nobody wanted it. They didn't know what to do with it. It's so rocky and hilly, and it's like, what is this? But it was beautiful. Okay, so Missouri doesn't have spectacular scenery, but it does have what I would consider just amazingly beautiful. It doesn't have these high mountains, but you can, like what you were talking about, you can find these just beautiful areas that are just magnificent.
We're in awe. Just today, going around the neighborhood outside of our B&B here at the Tuxedo Park, STL Bed and Breakfast. I got to give them a shout out. Just the neighborhood. This is a historic settlement of people, and every home there's this whole thing where all these historic registered places, national registered places. You're walking through it, and you have real fall colors. We went to these different parks, and they're fall. We sat on a bench for an hour today, watching leaves fall, and all these different colors. We're used to the desert Southwest. We have cottonwoods with colors, but this That
was amazing.
Hello, and we just sat there, kind of just gobsmacked and like, what the hell is this? This is real, and these, when color really affects you, there's an effect. I mean, I know coming out of the desert when we see green, and I also really love our desert. So make no mistake, there's a magical beauty of the desert and the West that you just want. Every place has its special thing, but coming into Missouri, we came out of Arkansas into Ozark. We were in the total southwest corner, and then apparently I started heading west instead of north, and we kind of got into Big Springs, and all of a sudden here's this spring with all this turquoise water, and this was this crazy thing, and we got totally detoured, but that's my fault. I get time zones and directions wrong, but we're still on the road and still touring and doing our job. but then
I love those detours. Actually, I like getting lost. If I have time, I love getting lost on the road.
It's so
because
cool.
you fall into you went into the Big Springs areas. That is amazing. Yeah, there's this beautiful river on my first album called Eagle Mountain. A river called there's a tune on it called Jack's Fork. And there's this river. It's like a very, very ancient river, and it's totally undeveloped. It's like protected riverway, scenic riverway, part of the Ozark Scenic Riverway things. And there's places you can go in there where the water is like this turquoise, and it's like you've got these huge cliffs. I felt like I was like, you canoe it, and you feel like you're back in the time of the Macedonians or something. It's like just a total trip back in time. Because here's why. Okay, geologically, that area is probably the oldest area on the planet that's been continually exposed, that hasn't been underwater. So as a result, you have these things that are called shut-ins, where the water flows, and it's these hills used to be as big as like the Himalayas, millions or billions of years ago, whatever. But it's all the way down to the magna flow, when magna was like the volcanoes were like exploding or whatever. But a lot of these creeks around here, especially in the Ozarks, are exposed. That they've worn all the way down to where the magna flow is, and where we have property in the Mark Twain National Forest area. I mean, there's glades there. They're called rock glades, and you find like desert animals like you have in the Southwest that have survived.
Yes, and plants like
continually.
yuccas. You have yucca plants.
Yes.
They grow everywhere, apparently.
Yeah.
Everywhere we've been, there's been yucca.
Louisiana has them in the Kisatchie Forest, too.
Yeah.
And there's a whole legend about how someone went and put them there on purpose. But it's not. It's a legend. It's a crazy.
Yuccas are amazing
I just
plants.
want to say, I was taught in art college that the water always reflects the color of the sky, and that's how you do that. And so you're doing these paintings, and if it's cloudy, then the water's cloudy, and it has a different hue. So when we went, we just went, wait a minute, the sky is like that color, and the water is a totally different color. It's a sunny day, so it's not about clouds. And I'm like, why is this water that color? I'm like, this is a phony color. This water can't be that color. It's not reflecting the sky. I'm like, no, what's going on with the watercolor? And you just explained it. It's different.
Well, what I found is, it's actually water will reflect its environment. So if you go like to the water, if you watch rivers flow, you guys travel a lot, so you'll be able to really tap into this. Like the water in the Northeast, this is like really dark green. Like especially around Vermont, the rivers that flow through there, Massachusetts, just this beautiful dark, but the water actually picks up the reflection and the energy and the vibration and the colors that it flows through. It's a very they've even found that water has like memory. They're actually using water. I guess we're getting off the music thing, but the latest quantum computers now are what they're using now are water drops. Not silicon chips, but water type silicon or water chips that will actually remember the capacity for memory, for retaining information is like leaps and bounds far above anything you could get in any kind of chip or anything else. It's but they're using that kind of water technology now, and the supercomputers to really amp up
like our cells have memories. I mean, that's it. And listen, and just a segue, go get Open Water. That album,
we're 97%
by Todd
water.
Mosby.
Hey, we're 90% but we're 97% water.
Yeah,
our bodies.
I'm going to go back to your album. Aerial,
okay, sorry.
No, I'm just going to go back to aerial views, because what you look at in the sky is water, and it's interesting. Like, can you see the water? Because some things are all closed up, and then you have like the little tributaries, and then you have the forks, and you have all of that. And the area you live in Arkansas and East Texas, all the places we've just been to in the last week, like literally. Hello, a lot of frigging water. You guys have lakes, rivers, streams, springs. But wait, we started out of Tallahassee. Let's just say that. We were in Tallahassee a week ago. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Bypassed the hurricane Zeta, whatever everybody wants. I say Zeta. We bypassed it in time to get to Gladewater, Texas. There's water there. Tallahassee has all those springs outside of there, Manitou Springs, and you can see manatees, and there's these different springs. But now think about it on the aerial perspective. Let's go back to your album. I'm good at this. I will bring us back home. You go up in the sky, and the water is going to look different depending on what airplane you're in and how low you're flying. It's interesting, and I think I do honestly think that it's interesting because it is going to look different. And are you going to see when it's the Arkansas River that looks brown versus another area of water that looks blue or green? You know what I mean? The Arkansas River is brown. We followed it all the way from Colorado, where the last time we talked to you.
From the top to the bottom. We did
the headwaters to
we
the Arkansas. We did it to to Little Rock. Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
Really?
What a cool
trip. We followed it.
Oh
I
know.
Yeah, after we talked, it's all
cool.
your fault. Yeah, but we really did. We actually did. We did go all the way there. We did do it, and we didn't do every single stop. I mean, but we did as much, and the Santa Fe National Historic Trail on the way. But it was interesting to me. Like, the color was brown from one point to the other. You know, it was brown.
Yeah. Wow.
So I didn't think about the color
until you
just said
a really cool journey.
Would you see that in the sky when you flew planes? So would you see the color being different up there?
That depends on the depth of the water. Probably.
Yeah, and the temperature. Mississippi is kind of muddy all the way up. So here's what happens when you're flying in a small craft. You're anywhere from about, a couple hundred feet, but you usually cruise a couple of thousand feet up, top out, at least in the planes we were in, about 10,000. Above that, I think you need, you have to start having oxygen equipment on board. But we would generally cruise between 6,000 to 7,000 feet up. Or we would cruise out to the height of, where the cumulus clouds are. And that was always fun, traveling through those. So like that, there's water up there. I mean, clouds are water,
Yeah. Okay, so clouds. Do you learn all the clouds to be able to fly? Do you have to learn all the cloud formation?
Yeah, because they tell you about the weather and what's coming up and stuff like that.
Cool.
There's like I have a tune called Between the Clouds, and gliding is like, taking a glider going through. And I try to use it. There's about 4 tunes where I use the Indian guitar on. Actually, I use the acoustic guitar to set the chord progression, and then the electric Indian guitar to actually, play the melody, flesh the melody out. But this is probably the biggest production recording that's to date, I think.
Singers, and I feel like
Lola
you brought jazz. You brought jazz into this album.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of my roots. I mean, growing up in St. Louis, and I jobbed around here for about 30 years, just, playing, corporate gigs, private gigs, concerts, you name it. I mean, playing in, grocery stores all the way to full concert stages and, festivals. It was a very active time from the, I would say, the mid 90s to about the 2008 or so. Very active to be a musician here. A lot of corporations were based here. There's a lot of work for musicians, so I really didn't have a need to step outside of that. And I was earning a pretty good living, actually, but then everything kind of ended after 2008, and then it hit again around 2010, and I could start seeing the writing on the wall, so I started seeking out other forms. So I, started focusing on recording and touring nationally.
Well, I think what you've done amazingly also with Will-Ackerman and Tom Eaton as a team that produced your albums, I mean, that's huge, right? This album, you really tap into a little bit of everything, which I think is pretty much part of their signature too. And Will-Ackerman has always had like an ability to put different genres into one blanket, you know what I mean? And make you feel comfortable with it and make you be able to skip to another one and another style. And I think this album reflects that. When you talk about it being about, the air and flying, aerial views, you're going to have clouds. You're going to have these amazing things, and you're going to have a little fear. You're going to have like, ooh, now this feels sexy and beautiful. I think you have all of that in there, and the flow of the album, it really has like this thing how it goes through these, like feeling like you're in Appalachian land, right? Especially with across America, and then you start getting into this jazzy vibe, like, okay, we're okay now. It's okay. Solo flight. I can do the solo flight. I'm fine. Look at me. You know what I mean? It has this whole, you kind of took air flight in all kinds of rhythms and perspectives of what you can do, what your passenger or pilot place is with this album, like all of it. But I think the jazz thing at the end was interesting. The jazzy, sexy, Sade kind of like, it. Can I play? I really want to play Shining Lights for everybody. Is that okay with you? I want everyone to hear this.
Yeah, a little backstory on that. That's when you're flying at night and lights of small towns are kind of visible and scattered, by great distances, but the lights are all connected, and it's kind of an analogy to the lights inside of you, like your spirit too, which shines in each of us. So the lyric kind of recalls places for me personally that were of spiritual significance. And Lola, the singer on it, just did amazing.
Oh my gosh.
I've got she's phenomenal. She's from St. Louis. She's based in Los Angeles now. And and then I brought in a backup singer, and I said, okay, guys, let's see what happens. I really hear this like choral thing at the end where we just kind of vamp it out. And I had a hard time selling Will and Tom on it at first. And we started laying in the vocals, and they actually sang two at a time. So each pass was two vocals. So the second pass we had 4, third pass we had 6. And Will's starting to go, I don't know. I'm going, no, let's just. And then all of a sudden by the, 5th or 6th time, Will's starting to go, this is starting to sound pretty good. Let's keep going. So, about 14 layers in, he's like, oh, yeah. He's like totally on board with it. That's what I like about working with Will and Tom. They're incredibly musical. They have very high standards, but they're flexible too. And we've kind of developed, 3 albums in, we've kind of developed this synergy. It kind of works kind of nicely. So this is, and I love how Tom mixed the guitar in there. It's kind of like it's almost like a Larry Carlton kind of vibe on my electric guitar, but I love this tune. This is one of my favorites.
It's a synergy of a gazillion genres too, and the vocals and it is amazing. Just take a listen, everyone. Talk about a smooth landing, everybody. That was Shining Lights from the album Aerial Views, the third album of a series of 3 albums, concept albums by Todd Mosby, and we're so happy to have him back on the show here on Big Blend Radio. Todd, again, Shining Lights to me, like, it's so amazing because it has this jazz, R&B, Joni Mitchell thing. It's like Sade and Joni Mitchell got together, and then it's like, no, Pink Floyd stepped in some ways. It's a very. I'm serious. Like, this album
they had
is
a baby.
Amazing. They all had babies in the sky. That they were part of the Mile High Club, but this
That's a good
album,
name for a band.
Yeah,
I know, right?
Mile
They
High
had
Club.
a baby. Oh, no, I thought you were going to say they had a baby.
I know. But no one's
the Mile
giving
High
birth.
Band.
No one wants to give birth right now. That's too painful. But Todd, you've got 3 albums of these concept albums that you're doing, and it seems that it's really all nature influence. It's all about Earth, nature, sky, water.
Yeah.
More coming?
Well,
more
we've got
coming?
fire.
Oh, we gotta have
there's the element of fire, and then wood, or wood and steel. But I don't know. This was a really this is probably the highest level production that we did, because I actually tracked all the guitar parts, the rhythm guitar, because Will likes getting that down really solid at his place in Vermont. Then about 3 weeks later, we went to Dreamland Studios in Woodstock, New York, which is where Jerry Marotta is, and Tony Levin as well. And that was, oh my God, this place was like a church. And Tom Eaton was there. He was doing all the engineering, and he did all the mixing and everything on it. The guy's amazing. And Will was there too, but he was there on the phone, because of the COVID thing or whatever. And but oh my God, the sound was just amazing, and we were able to track bass, drums, and percussion together, with Tony and Jeff Haynes on percussion, and Jerry Marotta was on drums. He was kind enough to step in and offer his services on that, and I thought it'd be a really good fit because Jerry and Tony have about a 30-year history playing and recording together in different bands. And they were just so easy to work with, and the environment they provided was just phenomenal. They put out 120, 50% on what they did. They went way over the top of. They were very involved in the project, and they enjoyed the music enough that they wanted to put forth a lot of extra effort to make sure everything was together, and it was their best effort musically.
Cool.
And and
the
then
album
Lola
flows. The album just flows, which you want when it's an aerial view.
Yeah,
you want to flow.
Here's the deal. The sequencing on it was done by Will. He always does. I always have him do the how the thing, how the tunes line up in the end, and I'm always just totally shocked. Okay, so I found there's 3 ways on this particular one you can listen to it, or 4. You can go all the way through from beginning to end. But it's weird. You can go from tunes 1 through 6, which is Sylph, and that's one block. And then from 7 to 12, that's a whole nother block. And it's like, what? Or you can go from 12 to 4 or something, and then that's a whole nother, and it breaks out and works out like that.
I've done that.
And the last tune loops right back into the first tune. Really nicely, and it's just the way the tunes are put together and sequenced is really cool.
I need to ask about go ahead, Nancy.
I was going to say it's like writing a novel. You got to have you got to have your characters, you got to have your plot, and you have to have the sequence of the story, and it escalates and then it calms down. It's the same.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
But that's when you're doing a concept album, right? Versus a different album. If you're doing a concept, it's a concept.
A story. Yeah. It's a story.
And all the titles, everything's related to that. Yeah, and that's probably how Will sequences it too. Because I mean, he loves doing it, and he's really
Cool.
good at it. It's like I
Cool.
just say, "Here, Will, do it," and he ultimately comes up with a really cool thing.
Cool.
Well, to me, the guitar. I wanted to get to the guitars because there's a lot of jazz guitar sounds throughout this. There's a violin, the sax. There's all of these sounds, which is beautiful. But I wanted to touch back to the Imrat guitar for listeners that may have not heard your interview with us before, or may not have heard, what you do with this amazing piece of, this beautiful good. I want to. We're here in St. Louis. Like, damn it, we need to see the Imrat guitar. So tell everybody about this,
man.
because you do have this whole yes, now we're in India. Now you're not. Pieces through the music. Tell everybody about the Imrat guitar.
Well, on this set of recordings and on Open Waters, I have an acoustic one and I have an electric one. So the acoustic one is essentially, it's like a hollow body guitar, acoustic guitar. It's a carved arch top guitar is what it is, with a very long neck, not a real long neck, but the length of like a baritone guitar. Okay, it's got a harp that bows over the top of the instrument, and there's what's called sympathetic strings on it. Now, in a normal harp guitar, those strings would go down in pitch, like bass strings, lower and lower from the sixth string or the bass string of the regular acoustic guitar. This actually goes up in pitch, from the first string of the guitar. So it's very angelic sound. The frets are carved out so that I don't push in, I pull, and that gives me like a really maximum amount of control over my pull. So I can do really long, kind of intricate kinds of phrasing on it, like a sitarist.
So you
the
took
way
the
I have
frets
it tuned.
out. You took the frets off your guitar?
No, actually I do have frets on there, and it's a fixed kind of bridge. So the frets, it's like if you route it out. So it's like you take a regular guitar and in between the frets, it's just kind of carved out. So it's a little bit deeper, so your fingernails don't, grind into the fingerboard. Because when you're pulling, the way I pull and a sitar pulls, you need that control. You're not going to get it on a push, like pushing the strings up, like a blues player, but you will get it on a pull. That's why the neck is really wide. It's about an inch below that first, the highest pitch string, playing string.
Yeah.
And so I can pull, I've got a lot of room to pull, the first string and the second string down. I use basically 4 plain strings that are tuned D, then D up an octave, then A, then D up another octave from there. So it's basically 2 notes, and the harmonies I get off that thing are amazing. I mean, I don't get any kind of harmony, chord progressions, and the sound it's very inspiring to play.
Wow,
so
I love
4
it.
tunes on here. Yeah, man.
Solo Flight.
4 tunes I used on
Flight.
this.
Oh my God, Solo Flight. I love Solo Flight. Sorry. I got
really?
excited.
Nice.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, Solo Flight, that actually started as it was just going to be solo acoustic Indian guitar, right? Imrat guitar, and I tracked it, and then I brought it. I thought, no, I want to put percussion on it, so I brought in Jeff on percussion, and he was like going, oh my God, Todd, we need bass on here. So I said, I called Tony, who was there. I said, hey Tony, man, can you do a track on this? And so I gave him the music, and he worked it up, and he laid his track down, and then we're going, oh no, wait, no, we got to get Pramik on this, See, I've played with all these guys. We tour. I mean, this is my touring band, actually, with Jeff and Pramik and Lola. Tony and Jerry. Jerry's the new kid, basically. But he did so good. I mean, he never worked with the Ackerman Tom team, and but so anyway, so we put that in, and it just really blended really nice. It's a very woody kind of sound, and it turned out like really cool.
Todd, before we go, because we're going to play a song, but we're going to run out of time real quick, because apparently now we have an unofficial happy hour show. If you could spend happy hour with anyone, who would it be, alive or passed on? What would you drink? Where would you be with them? And what would you talk about? Because it is about that hour of power of like learning something with someone or having an emotional connection too. It could be love, it could be whatever. But who would you spend an hour with, basically?
Oh, with happy hour?
Yeah.
I don't know. I love talking about music. I love talking about art. I love talking about spiritual things. Talking
That's
about.
why we love you on the show and your music. Are you kidding me? I love it. I'm so glad you're back. And we're in your like town, basically, but probably over a river or bridge or something. Who knows? We're in Webster Groves. Is that close? Does that be close?
Yeah, Webster's cool. Yeah, no, that's not far. That's actually the area you're in is a very historic area. It's the university part of St. Louis. You got Webster University, which is probably one of the older universities in the U.S. But no, that's a very cool area, very old, and really cool houses. It's that's very, very cool. Yeah.
So who are you going to take?
There's,
Who are you going to take on happy hour?
Oh, who am I going to take? Oh my God, you put me on the spot.
I know, I'm good at that.
I'd probably like to talk to WC for a little bit.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Or Wes Montgomery, or
Cool.
You can bring them all.
There's actually a place called Oak and Barrel right around there, which has a bar, but I don't know what the deal is with them these days. There's a really cool coffee shop down the street in Webster. But actually, Oak and Barrel it's a great restaurant, but they're always sold out. You have to have reservations a month in advance or something these days. But I don't know. Did I answer it?
Yeah, you're good. You're going to take Einstein or W.C. Fields. That's cool. You're going to take him there.
No,
that's good.
WC.
That's W.C. Fields, Lisa.
But in St. Louis, man, I don't know. Shoot, how long y'all guys in town for?
We leave tomorrow.
Oh, okay. All right.
I know, that's fun.
All right.
But we'll see you again. We'll talk to you again.
Yeah,
and we'll see you. We'll see you.
Okay. I'll show you my Imrat guitars.
Oh my God, I
Definitely.
so want to. I so want to. So we're gonna close with because this show airs it's gonna end. So we're gonna close with Solo Flight. Is that cool? Because I think that is when you ascend to be able to do your own thing. I think Solo Flight is important. Don't you think?
You're actually, because Will actually said when he heard me do the rough on this tune, he said he loved this tune. He actually loved all of them. What I do is I whittled down, for this project I had about 500 tunes. I whittled it down to they weren't finished, but I basically presented him with about 25 tunes, and from there we whittled down to 12. And he totally dug this piece. He goes, Todd, this is totally you. It's just a solo Indian guitar. Yeah, and I open with a little bit of an ullum. Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
So it really highlights that acoustic, what it can do, basically.
So everybody go to toddmosby.bandcamp.com or go to toddmosby.band. The album is Aerial Views. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to keep in touch. Here it is.
Oh, absolutely.
Here it is.
Yeah,
Solo
absolutely.
Flight, everyone. Cool. Take care.